Greetings, Culturians, and welcome back to the channel. I can't even begin to tell you how embarrassing it must be for Disney right now when it comes to the complete flop and failure of Tron Ares. Now, I tried to warn you this was coming. I knew this would happen. You probably did too if you've been paying attention. But we're going to start with probably one of the worst weekends we've seen in a long time for the total box office, and leading the charge, of course, is Tron Ares. So, here we go. Now, first and foremost, we have to start with Deadline. Deadline's usually always wrong. In fact, they're just tainted. They are yellow journalism at best. And you can tell by the way they describe Tron Ares before it even gets to the weekend. So back on the 8th, Tron Ares hopes to pop a wheelie at weekend box office with $80 to $90 million global. First and foremost, both Anthony and Nancy contributed to this, even though they knew this was unlikely to happen. And as we move into what Variety has to say, as you can see here, box office Tron Ares aims for $50 million debut. That was domestic. That wasn't international. So when you look at that and the fact that J-Lo's flop film, Kiss of the Spider Woman, it got a $2 million start, or at least what they estimated, none of these are accurate. They weren't ever going to be, and I'll show you why in just a moment. But we took a look at the weekend predictions over on the numbers in the article they have here, where it says, looks as though it may more or less hit the same numbers as Taylor Swift did last weekend, and they were just targeting a predicted forecast of 37.2 million. And that seemed about right. It's embarrassingly close to what our friend over at Box Office Theory predicted, and we'll get to that in just a moment. But when you look at, as the week progressed, as the weekend progressed, Box Office Tron Ares hits the grid with 14.3 million opening day. Now, again, I want to show you what that actually means, because that's not Friday's numbers, no. That includes Thursday's numbers. As you can see here, October 9, 2025, 4.8 million. That's where we started. Now, October 10, which is the Friday numbers, is 14.3. So that only is because, well, they added the preview number in there. Now, that preview number was pretty big, but the Friday number was only 10 million. And not only 10 million, just 10 million, which is pretty gross. But Box Office Theory should have just been widely distributed to all these trades, because at least they would not sound so ridiculous, or at least as much of a failure as they turned out to be. Because here we are, Tron Ares 33 million plus. Yeah, this is something he predicted, and you're going to get why that's so important. You also talk about Roofman, Soul on Fire, Kiss of the Spider Woman, and well, this is a debut for a quiet holiday frame. Now that is the piece of the narrative they want you to focus on, because they want you to turn this into a 4-day weekend to give Tron a little more credit on what is mostly a government holiday. Not a lot of people get Columbus Day off, or I guess it's being called Indigenous Peoples Day now for those of you who are super PC. But it's not a holiday. It never has been, at least not in my lifetime, because I still was going to school. You got Tron Ares at 35 to 37 million. Now, this was on October 11th, and Anthony knew his prediction was in big trouble. So, Roofman, $8 million underwhelming in openings. I would say that's not, I mean, this is not the whole story. The entire weekend is weak. That's why I did the thumbnail the way I did. W-E-A-K, weekend. This might be an end of what Disney tries to do going forward, because remakes and sequels aren't working out for them so well, and one of the reasons they are turning back to things like Tangled, which you'll see a video from me about later in the week, is because they can't write anything original. They have to go back to taking their animated films, especially from their high-end animated films, whether it be Pixar or Walt Disney Studios got compromised. You got to focus in on the fact that if they want to be successful, they need more Lilo and Stitch. And they need less of Lightyear, or Lightyear, I guess is what the proper name is. Regardless, these numbers didn't get a whole lot better. And again, Anthony, I guess this was on Friday, was predicting an even lower number. I can't imagine this guy feels like he's got his finger on the pulse of the box office when he's wrong almost all the time. And when we look over here we are. He had to write the article again with a Sunday update of the box office dimming to $33 million. Now, I'm not here to shame Anthony. I mean, Anthony's got a job to do. He's got his marching orders, and he's probably adhering to them as best he can. But it doesn't help you feel like you're producing quality work if you're always wrong. And box office theory seems to be almost always right. So we get finally to this, which is Nancy on the international side saying Tron Ares hits a bump in the road with 60.5 million global opening. Now, there's a difference between 90 million and 60.5 million when you're looking at box office numbers. Nancy knows that. She also knows she has the same marching orders that Andy does, which is to be incredibly wrong all the time and not listen to the audience. And this is the whole problem with the studios right now, not giving the audience what they want because the audience is telling you. This movie was not good by all accounts, and I have been so discouraged from going to see it that it's quite possible you may have to wait a while for my actual review, especially when some of my friends have said, well, there's some positive stuff. I'm like, not according to the audience. Regardless, let's get to the numbers, because this is why you're here on this day to see what the weekend was. Now, that's WEAKEND. Tron Ares, of course, number one, 33.5 million. Absolutely dismal and just in line with box office theory. And I don't know why you would argue with that guy. It was in 4,000 theaters. And if you take a look at the per theater average, it couldn't even get to $9,000 per theater. That's insane. That is a terrible, terrible opening for what should have been a blockbuster. But hey, that's what Disney does now because nobody trusts Disney. Let's take a look at Roofman. Now, you would have thought this would have done better, or at least I would have thought it would have done better. Channing Tatum is supposed to be in Movie Star. Doesn't seem like he is. Paramount only pulled in $8 million with this in 3,300 theaters. Now, you would say that's kind of a thin release, and I would agree, but maybe they also knew that this would have a limited and very targeted audience, and it came in at $2,380 per screen. Also not good. $8 million is kind of embarrassing, especially for somebody who is a quote-unquote star. Now, Gabby's Dollhouse is still hanging in there. I think we're like week 4 of that, maybe week 3, I don't know, but it stepped up in tier, in place. It actually moved up compared to everything else that was newly released. So 37% fall off from the previous weekend should tell you that while this movie fell and only earned $3.3 million this last weekend, and it pulled out of 458 theaters, it's still in third place. That's terrible. 26.4 million. And you keep going with this new film, Soul on Fire from Sony, only earning 3 million. I can tell you, I never saw marketing for this, and it has such a limited release, in my opinion, at 1,700 theaters. It really kind of deserved that kind of earnings. I wonder if Sony put any money into this. And Demon Slayer, still killing it. I think it's in 5th place in all international for the year. It's all the global for the year. This thing's in position 5, perhaps. That's not bad, but $2.2 million, pretty good. When you get to the Smashing Machine, it disappoints even further at $1.5 million, only earning a measly $9.6 million to date domestically. And again, these are all the domestic numbers. And we've got to this, Awful Strangers 2 film from Lionsgate at $1.5 million, falling off an even steeper cliff at $13.4 million overall. And finally, Good Boy, the dog-based and dog-led horror film, $1.3 million. Finally, The Long Walk, which nobody was walking to the theaters for, got $1 million and brought that total to $33.9 million. Now, we're past the point of the top 10. Downtown Abbey, inconsequential to me, but a lot of ladies and some fellas kind of enjoyed this thing. Him is still a complete failure and flop at $460,000, earning a grand total to date of $24.5 million. That probably isn't anywhere near what it costs to produce, and this movie will lose money. In fact, everything here is in rough shape as we go down this list. By the way, the struggling Disney Marvel film, The Fantastic Four, is at a mere $61,000. Well, they're going to try to limp that thing to $300 million, and it ain't gonna make it. It's going to be one of the biggest disappointments in Marvel in a long, long time. And you know what? They deserve it. Everything else is just kind of locked into wherever they are. At the end of the day, I would normally finish this up talking about the overall box office for the weekend. And based on the 25 films that were represented here in the numbers, and I don't believe that's going to be it because usually we're in the 30s, the low 30s this time of year. There's probably 7 more films in here that'll bring this total up, but I'm sorry, 58 million for a box office weekend with what is supposed to be a blockbuster? That's awful. Look, this is the point where we need to recognize reality. Maybe the box office is dying. Maybe the studio system is dying. Maybe Disney is dying. Maybe all the studios are dead meat and we just don't know it yet. That's a possibility, and it seems to be coming more and more true. We haven't had anything that was exciting for an audience to go and attend, and it's very clear to me, as I said towards the beginning of the video, nobody trusts Disney anymore, and it shows in every so-called blockbuster that they choose to release. So we've come to the point of the video where I have to ask you, audience participation time, what do you think about this last weekend's box office? Do you think it was as weak as it gets? Do you think that Tron was a predictable flop? Do you think that it's sad that the second place film earned only $8 million? Does that tell you that the overall box office is just decimated? Do you think theaters should be looking for other alternatives to show on their screens, like maybe streaming binge model shows that have proven successful in the past? I mean, do you think you could see season 1 of Breaking Bad in an epic binge in a theater? I think that's quite a possibility, and many other shows as well. Couldn't you imagine they bring back the first 5 seasons of Game of Thrones in a binge model and make buku bucks? Of course, because at least that was back when entertainment was entertaining, when the stories included storytelling and not just a bunch of lectures from the message pushing Hollywood of today. Let me know your thoughts and others if you choose down in the comments section below. As always, this was your box office wrap up, giving you the real numbers that Hollywood is generating these days. And don't forget to check out my brand new podcast. Thank you for your attention to this matter. The podcast on Tuesdays and Thursdays for now. On Tuesdays specifically, right after E3PO Live. On that note, be sure to take care of yourself, take care of others, and until next time, see ya! For real.